Prof, I can go start again because we just spent a minute or two.
Sure, sir. Absolutely.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I was just talking about my story at IITM. I was an MS student, joined in 2010, and this was the first talk at IITM just before we won the World Cup in 2011. And this was the last talk that I gave in CSE IITM. Again, some cricket World Cup connection, but this time we lost to New Zealand. So today's talk, I'll be focusing about the how, like what exactly is the process, how you can jump from your PhD life into a faculty life at various IITs and ISC. So it will be mostly focused towards the older ones. For the new ones, I don't have any like clear experience or stories to share, but mostly the ones that established sometime in 50s, 60s, the older IITs and ISC. Okay. So, assuming you are attending this talk because you have some interest into this profession and you are passionate about learning what it takes to become a prof. So, mostly it comes from your advisor because your advisor sees you doing things in a great way, maybe for research, maybe for teaching, or maybe for some other reasons. And then suddenly he says, okay, I think you should go for a faculty job in IITs. Or it can be because of some of your lab seniors or your friends who recently moved to some of these IIX and then become faculty, right? So mostly these are the reasons that's why that's how we end up becoming a faculty, unless you are truly motivated from the beginning that, okay, this is what I want to do, right? And that never happens, to be honest. Okay, so before we jump into the process of what exactly it takes to become a faculty at all these institutes, let's look at what are the responsibilities that you will be or you are expected to do, right? So the obvious thing that comes is like teaching, doing research, mentoring graduate, undergraduate students, plenty of committees, writing proposals, interacting with the industry, research lab and all. So at the end of the day, it may be overwhelming and demanding, but the better side of this particular profession is you are your manager, you are the CEO, that there is no one who can tell you what exactly you should do, and you have more than 100% freedom to explore whatever you want, okay? So, but having said that, I know that there are typical myths that, okay, the jobs are kind of pretty chill in nature and they actually go from 9 to 5 kind of government job or the so-called sarkari job, but that's not true. Okay, so to be honest, a faculty life in these institutes goes through this cycle. Okay, so there is no 9 to 5. This image tells the story properly. Okay, so before you start thinking about the process, I thought it's good to know what is the expectation from the institutes before you start applying. Okay, so let's start the process then. So let's say you are somewhere in your PhD, second, third year, you just got your first paper in some of the good conferences or journals, depending on the field of research you are in, and you are contemplating whether to go for a postdoc or directly apply to IITs. So the only requirement that is so far, the only requirement is for applying to these institutes, you should have a PhD. That's all. There is no other requirement. No exams, no other test, nothing. Everything you have done throughout your life, but at this moment you just need a PhD, and that will make you eligible for applying to these places. But then there are some ifs, right? So it's not only a PhD, but PhD with a good set of publications, mostly quality over quantity. So it doesn't matter whether you have tons of papers, but if you have 2 to 3 papers which are actually of good quality and then they speak volume, then that will seal the deal. Mostly the institutes look for authority, so you should be the primary author or the first author in these papers. For some of the fields, it may change. And obviously, you need strong letter of recommendations from your advisor, from your committee members, from your collaborators or co-authors. Okay, it's always good to have a personal website with all the details so that anyone can just go through your like academic credentials in few minutes. Okay, so these are kind of the first prerequisite that you should have before considering applying. And then once you have a good set of papers and you feel that, yeah, you are kind of ready to go, then what you can do is you can actually start preparing the following 5 documents, okay? So the first one is called the cover letter, which is typically like a professional email or a formal email that a candidate usually send to the head or department chair. And then the rest of them are kind of pretty much the technical documents. The first one is just showing interest that I am interested in applying to this particular department, this particular position, or blah, 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 right? So we'll go through one by one. The moment you start the process, inform your referees that they should be ready with the letters, because these institutes will start demanding letters before making any decisions. So the first thing is the cover letter, where the expectation is you introduce yourself, like who exactly, like who are you, and then what research area you are into, and why you fit into a particular department or an institute, right? It can be a simple formal email, or it can be a PDF showing all this who, what, and why. Okay. Then comes the CV. I think by the end of the PhD, you must be knowing like what exactly you need to show in your CV. So all kinds of achievements in research, publications, and along with that, all kinds of experience like teaching, internship, if you are mentor, few undergraduate, master students, all kinds of things that will make your CV strong, okay? And then comes the real technical docs. The first one is the teaching statement. Here you are supposed to like talk about your teaching philosophy, and then how you can teach, and in what way you can advance different courses that are already offered in the department, right? And is there anything specific that you can bring into the department if the department hires you, right? So those kind of things, and along with a bit of your teaching experience, like let's say you are a TA for some course and you have done really well, the students liked it, so talk about that. And if you have any pretty interesting story to talk about, you can actually mention about it in like few sentences, right? Then comes a research statement, where it's actually a story about your entire research, I would say, the research loop. So you start with your PhD research, and then define why your PhD research is important, why your PhD dissertation is actually a good dissertation. And then you talk about what exactly you are working on now, assuming you are doing a postdoc at this moment. And then you talk about the future, saying that once you get into this institute, your research plan will be, let's say, A, B, C, D, E. Okay. So writing about past and present is easy, because past is your PhD research, you know it because it's your research. But in the research statement, don't spend too much time on your past. Okay. Yeah, it's good to spell out that, okay, these are your achievements, but it's also good to highlight what exactly you want to do in the next 3 years or 5 years. Okay, that's what the committee or the department will look out for. So once those docs are ready, then finally most of the departments will ask for some of your best papers, maybe 3 to 5. So this is kind of pretty easy. You have to just combine all the PDFs into one single PDF, and then you are done. So at this moment, what the department or the institute expect is that you send all these documents, whatever we discussed so far, and then the department head or the department chair will actually inform you after the department looks at your documents. So usually it takes a week or maybe a month to end up into a particular invitation from a particular IIT. And this is kind of pretty easy, though it's a first level filter, level 0 filter, but it's pretty easy to clear unless your CV and your publications are not that strong. Okay. Another advice or another suggestion that I will have is don't listen to your friends or anyone. Just apply to all the places. You never know whether, or the other way to put it is, we always try to feel that, okay, we are not good enough, but let's not judge ourselves. Let's others judge us, right? So irrespective of which X you are interested in, just apply to all the IIX. Okay. And then let's say finally you got an email or let's say official email from the institute saying that, yeah, the department actually went through your docs and we are kind of excited for your talk and all. So this is where the actual interview starts. So what happens is the department will invite you for a talk and for one-on-one meeting with faculty, students, and others. And this is the time where you should put your best, okay? So after COVID, the department visit, it has become e-visit. But let's talk about the pre-COVID thing, because hopefully things will be much better by the end of the summer. And then all the ITs will start inviting faculty candidates to the campus. So typically it takes a day or two, depending on how big is the department in which you are interested in. And most of the institutes, they don't talk about the real interview process, but this is actually the real interview. Okay. So the department screening is actually the actual interview in IIX. Okay. So this is the typical schedule where you visit a department for 1 or 2 days, depending on how big is the department. Then you give a talk, typically for 1 hour, may go on for 1.5 hours, depending on questions. Then you meet the colleagues, your future colleagues, and the graduate students, mostly PhDs. Sometimes you have to meet with the deans and directors also. And along with this, there will be lunch and dinner that is part of this process. But to be honest, this is actually part of the interview process. So, so don't think that okay, this is something where you can actually kind of go down. You can actually do other stuff and then put chill for at least for a lunch or dinner. Okay. The real goal of the entire schedule is to convince folks who are not actually in your research area. Okay. Because the faculty who are already in your research area, they are convinced, that's why you got the invitation. Now it's your goal to make sure that the folks who are not in your research area, they should know that, yeah, whatever you are doing actually makes sense, and then they should hire you. Okay, that's the goal. And for that, you get 2 days. And at the end of the 2 days, the department should have a pretty positive vibes about you that, okay, you actually fit into the department. Okay, so let's look into one at a time, all the points that I mentioned here. So the first thing about is the talk, and this is the crucial thing in the entire process. Okay, so some of the tips that I will share is make sure that you practice before giving the actual faculty talk. Finish on time. There will be plenty of questions. Some of the questions may sound stupid, but it won't be. There will be interruptions from students, faculty, audience, and the interruptions can go long. So to learn how to handle interrupts. And finally, don't lose your temper and cool because everything is professional here. So you have to deal things professionally. Okay. So let's spend some time on the talk itself, like what exactly is the expectation. So this is what I believe is kind of the expectation from most of the institutes, that the very first 5 minutes, right, you talk about a big picture, like what exactly you are working on, what's the impact, what's the motivation, and why should the students or the faculty who are not in your research area should listen to you for next 1 hour, okay? So this is like a teaser for the rest of the talk, the way the teachers come for the movies or the series. So the teachers should be really cool and really good, right? So that makes the first impression. Then comes the technicalities, where it may happen that undergraduates won't be able to understand, but some of the graduate students or senior PhD students and the faculty members will understand. And then suddenly we'll actually get into a zone where very few will be able to understand or appreciate what exactly you have done. So this is the place where you actually jump from the 10,000 feet view to let's say 10 feet view, and then but at the same time you keep the 10,000 and 1,000 feet view for the non-experts, right? So the takeaway message should be clear for others, but for the experts, you should talk about the subtle issues. You should talk about nuances in your idea or in your approach. Okay. Then the final 5 minutes, again, you come back to the 10,000 feet view where you conclude like in sync with the first 5 minutes. So you started with saying, okay, this is the problem, this is the importance, this is the impact. And finally, you respect whatever you started with so that the folks who are not in your research area, they will be able to correlate the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes. In some of the places, you may have to spend a minute or two talking about your future research plan and teaching interest. So this is just a copy paste of whatever you have written in your research and teaching statement, nothing different. You should not take more than a minute or two. So the takeaway for giving a faculty talk is you should present a good story that shows technical rigor so that the folks will actually appreciate your research. And at the same time, you should present well, which will showcase your good teaching skills. So with that, let's move on to the meetings that happen. So these are called the one-on-one meetings where you will meet with faculty members and then sometimes along with the faculty members, students, and the deans and directors. So it's always good to have a small PPT for your talk for the folks who have missed your talk. So if they ask like what exactly you do, what is the impact, whether there is any future for this research area. So have a small 3-minute PPT for that. Make sure you visit web pages and then the project, the folks who are already in the department, so that you can actually talk about possible collaboration or let's say possibilities of future projects once you get into any of these institutes. One of the suggestions that again I will give here is try to understand and appreciate the other side of the world. So you may be an expert in your field, but it's more important to make sure that you understand others and what their research is. And then at the same time, it's also important that others understand why your research is actually important, right? So based on these meetings or based on these one-on-one meetings, your future colleagues will actually make a call whether you are actually able to understand things not only in your research area, but also in allied areas, right, which are not specific to your research. And then once it is done, you are actually done with the department visit, and then you have to wait again. And this time it can go on for a few weeks and sometimes for months. Okay, so this is where the department takes more time to look into your letters, and all the feedback goes into the department head and the committee based on your talk, based on your interaction with the students and the faculty members. And then finally, you will get an email saying that, okay, the department is actually recommending your name for the final selection interview, which is actually official. In this interview, it's not a visit per se. You can actually have it through online, through Skype or through Gmeet or whatever. And this is actually known as the selection committee meeting in IITs and ISC. So at this moment, if you have got an offer or if you have got an invitation for this final interview, that means the department is feeling strong about your case. Okay. And a strong department recommendation mostly makes the deal in all these places. Mostly 95% of the time, you will find that if the department says yes, then the IIT finally you will get the offer. But during the final interview, things may go wrong for different reasons. Okay, so again, one suggestion will be like make sure you take this interview as the interview, and then don't put chill saying that okay, department has recommended, so it will be a done deal, and then don't be complacent unless you see the offer. Okay, so this interview will be a shorter version of what you have already talked about during your department visit. So this interview will have committee members from different IITs or ISC, folks from research lab, along with the department head and then the dean and the directors. Okay, so the questions may vary from technical to your teaching expertise, your teaching philosophy, how will you get funding, what is your research agenda, how will you mentor students, all kinds of questions, okay? And typically it goes on from 20 to 40 minutes, but it may go on for an hour, okay? If they like talking to you, it may go on for an hour, okay? And that's all. So that's what the entire process is. And then you wait for a few hours or days. So few hours because unofficially you will get an update from the department chair or the department head within a day, or sometimes within few hours by the end of the day. And then once you get the call, then you can expect that you will get the official letter sometime in a few weeks time, okay, if not days. So this is the stage you are in. So let's say you got an offer from one of these IIX, and you're like you're in cloud nine, but then you have applied to other places also, right? So this is kind of tricky because different IIX offer or they operate at different speed. So sometime it may happen that if your CV is super strong and then your credentials are strong, then all the IIX will actually vouch for you. They will actually fight for you. And there comes the tricky phase where you have to wait for all the offers before you make a decision, right? So again, this is my 2 cent, like which IIX to choose. So I would say that choose a place or department that is excited about you. So obviously you'll be excited about the department. That's why you apply to that department. But you should be also excited about the place where they are excited about you. And do talk to folks who are already there, and then think about priorities at the personal space, not only the professional space, because yeah, it's taken that you will do the job, but your family and your parents and your children will also stay with you, right? So take care of those aspects as well. So finally, based on all the trade-offs, you make a call, and then typically the process that we started with, sending the CV, cover letter, and all, to get an offer, it takes from 2 to 8 months. So 2 months is like super fast if your CV is pretty good, and then the department is actually dying to get you, and then you may get everything done in 2 to 3 months. 8 months is kind of I would say the worst case because let's say because of the COVID things have slowed down a bit. But 4 to 6 months is kind of average. 2 months is like super fast, and 8 months is like super slow, right? So some of the myths that I got it from Madhura. I think these are the questions that you have put it when she asked for a few questions. So it's a common myth that PhD from US, they get the edge over PhDs from India, and then there's a competition among PhDs. But to be honest, so I have been looking at profiles, CVs, and then letters from last 3.5 years. That's not the case. So don't treat it like an exam, okay? Institute matters more than publications. Again, it's a myth. We don't care from where you have done your PhD. We look at what exactly you have done, okay? Similarly, BTech from IITs are preferred. Again, no. Otherwise, the requirement would have been BTech. The requirement is PhD. And if you feel that your research area is pretty niche and no one actually cares, no one works in this area in India, then you never know. You may be in full demand. So don't overthink. Just apply. Right. So if you have further questions or queries, then feel free to reach out on these handles, or you can just email me, or so if you have something which is pretty specific, you don't want to ask now, but you want to ask later, so you can feel free to ping me. I'll be more than happy to answer them. So all the best, and I hope to see you, some of you, if not all, at various IIX, and maybe as future colleagues. So with that, I will stop here. Thanks for your time, and time to take questions.
We are available on YouTube as Career Development Cell Research IIT Madras. If you want to find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook, you can type IIT Madras Research Affairs Teams. If you want to write us, you can mail us at cdc_research@sml.iitm.ac.in.